I spent most of my life highly anxious, disassociated from my body, and haunted by memories of childhood sexual abuse that led to sleep issues. And yet, I thought there was nothing wrong. It took me a 5-year journey with psychedelics and other modalities to help me unpack all that trauma and to truly feel alive.
Psychedelics are said to shift our fixed perspectives, giving us a bird's eye view of our own lives and helping to remove the lenses of cultural, religious, and social conditioning through which we are taught to see the world. They are being used therapeutically and somatically to treat depression, addiction, PTSD, and trauma, and many are using them to explore the ineffable, those unknown realms of consciousness and beyond. Join us in Adventures of the Psyche as we learn how psychedelics have transformed people's lives. Welcome, friends, to Adventures of the Psyche. Today we are joined by Dena Justice, who shares the journey of how psychedelics taught her about the mind-body connection and addressed lifelong conditions that kept her feeling unsafe. A little bit about Dena. She's the founder of Psychedelic Ministry and Ecstatic Collective. As a master coach and certified trainer, she certifies others in Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and NLP Coaching. She integrates these practices into non-ordinary states of consciousness, such as meditation, breathwork, movement, and psychedelics.
As a 4-year-old, little Dena went to her mother and said, "I'm not safe. Don't make me go back there," the place where the abuse was happening. Unfortunately, my mom didn't listen. And yet I went on to create a pretty decent, what I thought was a good relationship with her. Also, to keep myself safe, to keep little Dena safe, I learned to hide. And most of that hiding happened in nature. So for most of my life, the only place I ever felt any form of safety was alone in the outdoors. By age 5, little Dena had developed an incredible pain tolerance. Throughout my life, from various injuries, I've had multiple doctors tell me that I have the highest pain tolerance of anyone they've ever seen. This has been a point of pride for me. And this dissociation from my body, the not being able to feel pain, also led to a lack of awareness of my body in time and space. I would run into furniture, doors, walls, all sorts of things, and I was always covered in bruises that I didn't know where they came from. By age 8, little Dena was reading multiple chapter books a night, and no one thought that this was unusual, including myself and my parents. I turned into a pretty classic overachiever for someone that's experienced trauma. I constantly kept myself busy. That was a way that I could feel like I was in control of my life. And that overachieving was also a way to avoid my feelings. I didn't know it throughout my life that what I was dealing with was anxiety. I just knew, like, the busier I was, the less I had to feel those negative things. All of that anxiety in the background also led to only developing anxious attachment in my relationships, not just with friends, but with intimate partners. And I just kept repeating this really shitty cycle of negative patterns in my intimate relationships. I was literally hiding in plain sight in my life. I couldn't show anybody around me my vulnerability. So it kept all of my relationships at a pretty surface level. And I lived in a constant state of fear. I was scared to be rejected and abandoned. I was constantly scared I wasn't enough, and I was scared to not be in control. My need to be in control meant I wasn't into drugs, really not into alcohol. And I didn't want to do anything until I learned my friends were doing psychedelics intentionally and having major breakthroughs. And I said, sign me up for that. So in November of 2015, I did my first MDMA session. A dear friend of mine sat with me. I was chatting away and she asked me about my mother, and I totally shut down and stopped talking for a long time. I was like, I don't want to talk about my mom right now. Later that day, she asked me again about my mom, and I was willing to talk. And it was in that conversation that I was able to make a connection. That the reason I had read so many chapter books as a kid to keep myself awake at night was so that I wouldn't think about those memories from the childhood sexual abuse that were haunting me and the nightmares that would follow. That first MDMA journey really helped me unlock a lot of the coping strategies I had developed to navigate all of the trauma from the sexual abuse. And it also helped me unlock different awarenesses about the patterns I had in relationships. Shortly after that, in March 2016, I decided to intentionally be single so I could keep working on myself and understanding these relationship patterns. I kept doing journey work, and the results of that, all of these psychedelic journeys, were that I started to learn how to be vulnerable with myself and with the people around me. I finally understood that energy in my body that I lived with constantly was anxiety, and that I had an addiction to running as a way to escape that constant state of anxiety. And I started to understand this dissociation from my body, not living in my body, and how that disconnection wasn't just about the disconnection from my body. It was a disconnection from the experiences of sensation in my body, including pain and pleasure. I kept doing all this journey work for a couple of years, and in November 2018, I met an incredible man. We took our relationship in the beginning really slow and really intentional. I was on a mission to have the most amazing relationship I could that was based on secure attachment, and I didn't know how to create that. And through going really, really slow, we developed the most amazing, deep, emotional intimacy and real love. The amazing part of this is he was all on board for that intention as well, to do this our way, and he was supportive of the work I was doing with psychedelics. In 2019, I started working with the same sitter consistently. It was really important between my relationship with this incredible man and working with the same sitter. I started to really develop these amazing layers of safety and trust, things that I had never really experienced in my life. And through that, I was able to unlock different aspects of this trauma. It was really the combination of the psychedelic medicines plus hands-on body work and utilizing neuro-linguistic programming, which is something I actually teach. So utilizing these three things in combination, I figured out this connection between my mind and my body, and how much of this trauma was deeply stored in my body and why my body was in so much pain. So we worked through these layers, utilizing the mind-body connection, hands-on body work, understanding what was trapped in my body. I was able to release this trauma from my body. It led me to feeling greater sensations, both of pain and pleasure. I was also able to identify the exact moment where I would feel unsafe and I would check out of my body and dissociate. And then I was able to actually stop dissociating completely. I also worked through layers of codependency that stemmed from my relationship with my mother. And in that unraveling of codependency, continued to build even more secure attachment with my man. I started hitting some edges. Felt like I was hitting blocks, and it was all about little Dena's voice and how when little Dena shared with her mom at 4 that she wasn't safe and little Dena wasn't heard, that's where these blocks were coming up for me. And I knew it was time to do a high dose journey for little Dena. And I had been doing all of this amazing work, but I had been pretty scared and reserved to work with high doses of medicine. Probably about 250 micrograms of LSD was the highest I'd gone. So I decided it was time for a high dose. I consulted with my sitter about this, and I said, I think I'm ready to do this and actually look at the trauma head on. So I got support around all of this, and the day of that journey, I was really nervous and anxious. And it was really an incredible experience because I got to see and experience how all of those layers of trust that had been built with my partner and with my sitter and the friends I have in my life and my family, All of these layers allowed little Dena to step into that journey space and to do her work. I spent a lot of time really shaking and convulsing, all that anxious energy in my body getting set free. There were moments I remember scrambling into my sitter's lap and wrapping my body around theirs and repeating over and over, I just want to feel safe. Please keep me safe. The music worked its magic. An album I totally love was playing, specifically the song I love and I had been listening to on repeat. And between the music and my sitter repeating safety phrases, my sitter was saying things we'd learned to say to me, such as, little Dena is safe. All of the ages and stages of Dena are safe. It's safe to be in my body. All of me is safe. With all of this, I was able to have a significant, huge purge. I saw this white strand of light energy come to a point, brilliant white, and I articulated. I found the frequency of safety. I can see it and I can feel it in my entire body. In the days following, it was really interesting. I found I could sit with the memories of the abuse and to really look at them and to be with them. And there was no emotional charge. They no longer haunt me. I don't have to keep a secret anymore. I don't have to read books at night anymore. I'm no longer haunted by the memories. And I get to fall asleep easily and effortlessly, embraced by the love of my life, someone who loves me so completely and unconditionally. I found freedom from the trauma and the anxiety. My nervous system has been reset. Not only do I get to receive even more love and acceptance from the people around me, I now know what it's like to have found the frequency of safety and to feel safe in my body and in my pleasure and in my vulnerability and in love.
Thank you, Dena. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Marisa.
So I would love to hear how you explain to people how trauma gets stored in the body on a physical level.
If we don't have the appropriate ways of resolving trauma after we've experienced it, it gets stored in our body. So an animal, like a deer, runs in front of the car and nearly gets hit at night. It runs off across the street and it stands there and it shakes to let that energy go. As humans, we have this beautiful mind that gets in our way and interrupts these natural tendencies of our body. And so when we don't have a way to resolve the experience of trauma, it gets stored in our body, and everybody stores it in different ways.
So I'm curious, what symptoms were you dealing with before you started your psychedelic healing journey? Because a lifetime of anxiety and sleep deprivation and all these things you were dealing with have to have an impact on the physical health. And then where are you at now with all those same issues?
As a child, I was really sick until age 3, and my mom and I actually think that that sickness was a result of the abuse I was experiencing. And I've had a lifetime of asthma and allergies pretty significantly. Lots of sinus infections throughout my life. I would experience a lot of nausea because of the anxiety. And I didn't recognize that as anxiety. I used to have pretty significant back pain at times from just the constant tension in my body. And I would wake up in the middle of the night, and because of all that tension, my entire body would just ache. And that doesn't happen anymore. My body does not feel the same after doing this work so intentionally for 2 years. My body feels totally transformed.
Great. Thank you, Dena, so much for sharing your story and for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Marisa. It's been an honor.